Bioscanner humming, I drifted above the transit lounge deck, cloaked in the infrared shadow of a cargo crane. My 4 optic sensors swept the bustling platform, each lens a microscopic hunter, silently cataloging the thousands of life forms below. Thousands of heartbeats flickered beneath me. Fast, slow, triple pulse, silicon-cooled, some barely a flutter, others a frantic drumbeat against their ribs, but only one pattern truly mattered. My internal algorithms, honed over millennia of evolutionary dominance, were searching for the optimal caloric return, the weakest signal promising the biggest reward. I am KTH-LEC, apex tracker of the Orion Arm, and frankly, I do not waste energy on anything less than perfection. Any fool can kill randomly, but it takes true artistry to choose the perfect prey. Then, my reticule, a precise grid of threat assessment and nutritional value, locked on a lone mammal. Barely 2 meters tall, it was a creature of soft, almost pathetic proportions. No claws, no visible fangs, no armored plating, no poisonous spines. Just soft skin, a disconcerting shade of pinkish brown, wrapped in woven cellulose. It looked like it would tear if you sneezed on it too hard. Prey, whispered every ancient hunting algorithm embedded in my very being. Prey, repeated the deep, primal thrum of my hunger. This would be almost too easy, I mused, a mere appetizer before the main course. But the moment I committed to the lunge, before a single muscle fiber twitched for the strike, my visor slammed a single, stark red word across the inside of my skull. Apex. Not me. Him. I tasted the air through chemoreceptors. Nitrogen, oxygen, trace caffeine. Standard station mix utterly unremarkable. Around me, travelers shuffled Gruthothi merchants, their multifaceted eyes darting nervously behind thorax plate jewelry, practically vibrating with anxiety. A clutch of Varn broodmothers, scent marking their young with pungent pheromones, blissfully unaware of the silent calculations happening above them. Maintenance drones humming like oversized insects, oblivious. My scanner sorted them by metabolic efficiency, a cold, unfeeling ledger of potential energy. Weaklings first, apex later. That is the immutable law that keeps hunters like me alive, thriving. My gaze returned to the human. He stood in line for noodles, shoulders relaxed, thumbs hooked casually in pockets. His posture was almost offensively calm. Heart rate, 48 beats per minute. Respiratory quotient, 0.7, so utterly tranquil. He was practically radiating serenity, almost asleep on his feet. I tagged him green. Minimal fight, maximal gain. My cloaca salivated in a purely autonomic reflex. One clean strike, a quick spinal sever, then dragged the carcass to the waste conduit where the ubiquitous station cameras never reached. Perfect. This was going to be an easy hunt, perhaps even too easy. But sometimes you just needed to start with an appetizer that I descended, claws folded against the rail, a shadow within shadows. That was when the first anomaly hit, a jarring dissonance in my meticulously calibrated systems. My bioscanner feeds data directly into my optic lobe. I have no choice but to believe what I see, because what I see is always infallibly the truth. Yet the numbers refuse to add up, screaming contradictions into my processing core. The human's core temperature fluctuated half a degree in 0.3 seconds, an impossible feat for a warm blood to control voluntarily, a metabolic feat that defied known biological parameters. Muscle density read 1.12 GCM superscript 3, higher than a Korvac weight fighter, a species whose entire existence revolved around dense, combat-ready musculature. This soft, pink creature? It made no sense. Micro-expressions flickered across his face. A polite nod to the vendor, a half-smile, but underneath, cortisol levels flatlined. No fear, no anticipation, no aggression. My hunting code has always had only 2 categories, threat or meat. The human occupied neither, a glitch in the very fabric of my understanding. I initiated a deeper sweep, genetic echo, mitochondrial stress scars, ancestral memory traces, pushing my scanner past its typical operational parameters. The visor stuttered, its internal processors struggling to reconcile the incoming data with any known biological profile. Then, it slammed me with images, a rapid-fire montage of raw, brutal history. savanna firestorms raging across primordial plains, stone spears hoisted defiantly against mammoth ribs, steel hulls slicing through the cold vacuum of space, a boot print pressed into lunar dust, a testament to impossible journeys. Every single frame carried the same caption, pulsing in the ancient, guttural language that birthed my own species' understanding of predation. Persistence predator. I froze mid-air, talons scraping metal with an involuntary shriek of protest. Persistence predator. It's a scholarly term, not a slur, not a boast. It refers to a creature that does not outsprint its quarry, does not overpower through brute force, but simply, stubbornly, does not stop. This was a concept my species understood intimately, a fundamental principle of survival written in the very stars. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, world wars, radiation, the crushing vacuum of space. None of them, apparently, could finish humans off. They merely pruned the slow branches, leaving the tougher, more tenacious stock to endure. My species evolved to respect such data. Indeed, we wrote the textbook on how to survive, then were utterly outwritten by it. The human, completely oblivious to the existential crisis unfolding above him, lifted the noodle bowl. He slurped once, a shockingly casual sound in the sudden, profound silence of my personal revelation, and then, as if drawn by an unseen force, glanced up, straight into my cloaked position. His irises contracted, not in fear, not in surprise, but in a chilling, utterly unnerving recognition. Not of me, KTH personally, but of the idea of me. Predator. Problem to solve. My cloaking field bent light, damped heat, scattered all known energy signatures, yet somehow he stared straight through it. In the silence between us, a silence that stretched across galaxies, I understood he was running his own scan, and I, the apex tracker of the Orion arm, had just catastrophically failed it. He looked about as threatening as a particularly docile houseplant, and yet, my every instinct screamed otherwise. Warning glyphs, stark and urgent, erupted across my retina, a cacophony of red and amber alerts. World killer ancestry. Coordinated retaliation likely. Tool user class Omega. My cloaca voided involuntarily. An autonomic surrender response so primal, so utterly humiliating, that my trainer had sworn, with a contemptuous click of his mandibles, I would never, ever need it. Every muscle fiber in my body urged flight, a desperate, instinctual surge to escape, but a deeper, more profound dread pinned me in place. If I ran, would he pursue? Humans do not always chase, it's true, but when they decide something needs chasing, they don't just pursue. They calendar it. They commit, and nothing in the galaxy, as I was now acutely aware, was more stubborn than a human with a goal. I weighed my options, my processing core a maelstrom of terror and desperate calculation. Leap to the overhead gantry? Too slow. He could fling that ceramic bowl, a projectile of surprising mass, shatter my visor, then follow the sound of my fractured skull. Dive into the crowd? Station security would swarm, alerted by the sudden chaos, and humans, I recalled from some half-forgotten data feed, paid bounties in credits, not meat, no gain, only further unimaginable risk. So I did what no elite hunter in 12 star systems had ever recorded, what no apex predator of my lineage had ever contemplated. I folded into a submissive crouch, joints flexing inward, throat exposed, the universal sign, across countless species, of I am not worth the calories. Please, for the love of all that is holy, ignore me. The human's gaze lingered for 2 heartbeats, 2 impossibly long eternities. Then, with a casual shrug that felt like a seismic shift in my universe, slid away. He paid for his meal, tucked thermo chopsticks into his sleeve, and walked off, humming some tuneless, utterly terrifying melody. I staggered back to the ventilation duct, wings trembling with a residual fear that made my entire exoskeleton ache. My ship, a sleek, formidable hunter-killer hidden beneath Dock 9, opened for me like a frightened child opening to a nightmare parent, its ramp extending with a hesitant hiss. Inside, I purged the entire encounter from the log, overwrote the buffer with garbage starfields, meaningless cosmic dust, then sat in the dark while life support recycled the undeniable stink of my own fear. I told myself the data had been corrupted by solar static. I told myself he had merely been lucky, a random anomaly in the vast tapestry of galactic life. Yet every evolved neuron in my skull knew the truth, a truth as cold and hard as neutronium. The scan had not malfunctioned. It had clarified. I was not the apex in that room. I was unequivocally the emergency ration. Now I drift in the outer rim, engines set to a random hop pattern, no destination plotted, merely fleeing the ghost of a noodle-eating human. Somewhere behind me, that human has already forgotten the noodle lunch, already moved on to the next mundane, terrifying task. He will never know he saved my life by sparing it. But I know, and every time my visor boots up, it shows a new screensaver, one I never installed, one that haunts my every waking moment. A single, stark footprint pressed into gray lunar dust, captioned, in bold, unyielding Terran script, "We came in peace, for your sake." If you ever hunt in Terran space, if your algorithms ever flag that soft, pink, utterly unassuming species as easy prey, remember this. The easiest meal is always the one already extinct. Humans made the list, then, with a terrifying, casual efficiency, checked themselves off. Approach them at your own extinction. And if one day you smell noodles and hear humming, do exactly what I did: fold, flee, and for the love of entropy, never, ever scan again.